Have you ever sensed that someone in your life is subtly draining your energy? In a world where our interactions shape much of our experience, it is crucial to recognize the behaviors of toxic individuals who can erode our peace and well-being. There are certain patterns and actions that, if left unchecked, can cause deep harm, both emotionally and mentally. In this video, we'll explore the 12 typical behaviors of toxic individuals and how, with the wisdom of Stoicism, you can protect yourself and maintain balance. Knowing these signs is essential for preserving your inner peace and nurturing healthy relationships. But before we dive into these revealing behaviors, take a moment to subscribe to Stoicriseup. If you find value in these reflections on wisdom and self-mastery, hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content. Let's walk this path of wisdom together. Now, let's begin. Have you ever found yourself led down a path without realizing someone else was guiding your every step? Welcome to the elusive and often dangerous world of manipulation, where influence is exercised without transparency, the first red flag in our internal bad person detector. Imagine playing chess, but your opponent changes the rules mid-game, and you don't even notice. That's how subtle manipulation can be. Dr. Harriet Breaker, author of Who's Pulling Your Strings, defines manipulation as the hidden or indirect exercise of influence, pushing someone to act in a way that benefits the manipulator. But how can we spot manipulation before we fall victim to it? Consider these common tactics. 1. Emotional guilt. If you truly loved me, you would do this for me. 2. Gaslighting, making you question your perception of reality, leaving you disoriented. 3. Victimhood. They always seem to be the wronged party, no matter the situation. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, wisely said, "It is not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them." Manipulators are experts at twisting our opinions, turning them into tools for their gain. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology shows that people who score high in narcissism and Machiavellianism are more likely to engage in manipulative behavior. These traits, combined, create a perfect storm of deception. But don't despair. There are ways to defend yourself. Here are some strategies to counter manipulation. 1. Set clear boundaries. A firm no can be your strongest defense. 2. Trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, listen to that gut feeling. 3. Seek support. Talk to trusted friends for a reality check. Sometimes an outside perspective is all you need to regain clarity. Psychologist George Simon notes that knowledge is the best weapon against manipulation. By educating yourself about these tactics, you're already taking the first step in shielding yourself from their impact. But it's also important to remember, not everyone who manipulates is inherently bad. Sometimes we can all fall into these patterns without realizing it. The key is awareness. As Marcus Aurelius put it, very soon you will have forgotten everything. Very soon, everything will have forgotten you. This reminds us not to obsess over manipulators or let their tactics consume us. Instead, remain vigilant, but don't let them rule your thoughts. And speaking of wide eyes, let's talk about the second warning sign in our journey. The art of never apologizing. Do you know someone who always seems to be right, even when they're clearly wrong? This behavior is more common than you might think, and according to experts, it could be a sign of deeper, unresolved issues. Picture life as a game of Monopoly. We all make mistakes. We all land on that go-to-jail square from time to time. But there are certain players who seem to believe they possess a permanent get-out-of-jail-free card. These are the masters of the art of never apologizing. According to Dr. Robert Enright, a pioneer in the field of forgiveness, the inability to apologize often stems from a fragile ego and a profound fear of vulnerability. It's as though they wear emotional armor, shielding them from acknowledging their own mistakes. But what does Stoic philosophy say about this refusal to apologize? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, gives us an answer. The best way to avenge yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer. In other words, if someone refuses to apologize, the best response is to avoid falling into the same pattern of behavior. Their refusal does not have to dictate your actions or your peace of mind. So how do you spot these apology-resistant individuals? Here are a few common traits. 1. They always have an excuse, ready at a moment's notice to justify their behavior. 2. They deflect blame, shifting responsibility onto others or external circumstances. 3. They minimize the impact of their actions, downplaying the consequences of their mistakes. A study published in the Journal of Personality revealed that individuals with narcissistic traits are far less likely to offer sincere apologies. No surprises there, but don't lose hope. Whether you're dealing with someone who fits this description or you recognize some of these tendencies in yourself, there are ways to handle it. Here are a few strategies. 1. Practice empathy. Try to understand the fear or insecurity that may prevent them from apologizing. 2. Set clear boundaries. Make it clear that the lack of an apology is unacceptable and should not become a recurring pattern. Remember, as Seneca wisely noted, to err is human, but to persist in error out of pride is foolish. Acknowledging our mistakes doesn't make us weak. It's part of being human. So the next time you feel those words "I'm sorry" stuck in your throat, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, would you rather be right or be happy? Sometimes a simple apology can be the key to stronger, more fulfilling relationships. Now let's move on to the next sign. Have you ever come across someone who seems to have a heart of stone? This is the third sign of our bad person detector: lack of empathy. It's like an invisible wall that separates some individuals from the rest of humanity. Imagine for a moment that you're in a world where no one can feel what you feel. Scary, isn't it? That's the reality for people who lack empathy. Psychologist Daniel Goleman describes empathy as the ability to emotionally tune in to others. Without it, human relationships become cold and superficial. So how do you identify someone who lacks empathy? Here are some common signs. 1. Indifference to suffering. They react with little or no concern when others are in pain. 2. Difficulty understanding perspectives. They struggle to see things from someone else's point of view. 3. Insensitive remarks. They make hurtful or callous comments without realizing the emotional impact. 4. Shallow relationships. They have difficulty forming deep and meaningful connections. A study by the University of Michigan found that empathy levels among college students have decreased by 40% over the last 30 years. It seems we are indeed facing an epidemic of emotional detachment. But there is hope. Empathy can be cultivated and developed, just like a skill. Several studies show that practicing active listening and consciously putting ourselves in others' shoes can significantly increase our empathy. But how do you cope when faced with someone who appears to have a heart of ice? Here are a few tips. 1. Don't take it personally. Their lack of empathy reflects more about them than it does about you. Keep your self-esteem intact by not internalizing their behavior. 2. Don't expect change overnight. Empathy is like a muscle. It requires time and consistent effort to strengthen. 3. Lead by example. Sometimes, showing empathy yourself can inspire others to follow suit. As Marcus Aurelius wisely wrote in his Meditations, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I'm about to criticize? This Stoic reflection helps us extend compassion even to those who lack empathy. As the Dalai Lama said, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. So here's a little exercise. The next time someone annoys you, take a moment to imagine what might be happening in their life that's causing them to act this way. You might be surprised by what you discover. Let's go now to the fourth warning sign in our bad people detector: the constant creation of conflict. Do you ever feel like you're trapped in the middle of a storm where conflicts seem to arise out of nowhere? These mean-spirited individuals act like conductors of chaos, orchestrating drama as if it were a symphony. Conflicts flare up like fireworks on a quiet night, catching everyone off guard. Why do they do it? Sometimes it's pure amusement. Other times, it's a deflection, a way to shift attention away from their own shortcomings. It's as if they have a radar for peace and feel a compulsive need to destroy it whenever they sense it nearby. Psychologist John Gottman, renowned for his research on relationships, identified this behavior as one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in interpersonal dynamics. He calls it contempt, a toxic form of conflict that goes far beyond simple arguing. But how does this behavior affect those around them? Imagine living in a house where the walls are constantly shaking. Such is the environment these individuals create. peace and harmony become distant concepts, replaced by an atmosphere charged with tension and unease. Ryan Holiday, in his book The Obstacle is the Way, reminds us that calm is contagious, but unfortunately, so is chaos. These conflict-driven individuals are like viruses of discord, infecting every interaction and relationship they touch. So how do we cope with people like this? Here are some strategies. 1. Don't feed the drama. It takes two to fuel the fire of conflict. Refuse to engage in their cycle of chaos. 2. Practice stoic indifference. Marcus Aurelius would advise, choose not to be harmed, and you will not be harmed. You have control over how you react, so choose peace. 3. Seek allies. Surround yourself with those who value calm and stability. Build a support network that strengthens your resolve. Recognizing these conflict artists is the first step in protecting yourself. As Carl Jung wisely said, what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. Accept that these people exist, but don't let their inner chaos spill over into your external world. Before we move on to the next sign, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bell icon so you won't miss any future videos. And if you love learning as much as I do, comment below with I love learning. Let's keep growing together and improving our lives through Stoic wisdom. Signal number 5. Constant lies. Imagine for a moment that you're building a house. Every brick represents a truth, a shared experience, a foundation of trust. But what happens when someone begins replacing those bricks with balloons painted to look like bricks? Exactly. Eventually, the whole structure would collapse. Lies are like those balloons. They may seem harmless at first or even convenient, but over time they erode the foundation of any relationship, leaving it fragile and ready to crumble. And this is where our Stoic friend Seneca enters the scene. He didn't mince words when he spoke about honesty. For him, honesty was not just a virtue, but a cornerstone of healthy, lasting relationships. Seneca once said, "Honesty is the best policy, because it is the foundation of trust and virtue." Now imagine Seneca at a family gathering where everyone is lying about who ate the last piece of cake. He would likely walk out in philosophical protest. But let's get serious. Constant lying is more than just a bad habit. It's a red flag. Lies can take many forms, from small white lies to elaborate stories that could rival a spy thriller. The real danger lies in the fact that over time, these lies become a second language to the person telling them. Meanwhile, you're left trying to decode an ever-changing story. Why do some people choose to live in this maze of deception? Sometimes it's to manipulate others, sometimes it's to cover up damaging behavior, and sometimes they've simply forgotten how to be honest. It's as if they've lost the instruction manual for truth and are now improvising as they go along. So, how do you recognize a compulsive liar? Here are a few signs. 1. Inconsistencies in their stories. If the details of their stories frequently change, you may be dealing with a liar. 2. Avoidance of eye contact. While not a strict rule, many liars tend to avoid direct eye contact when they're being dishonest. 3. Shifts in body language. Look for gestures like touching their face, rubbing their neck, or crossing their arms, signs of discomfort when lying. 4. Evasive answers. If someone repeatedly dodges your questions, they might be hiding something. 5. Difficulty telling the story in reverse. Ask them to recount their story backward. Liars often struggle with this because they're making it up as they go along. Now, what can you do about this? First, recognize the signs. If someone's stories constantly shift, if the details don't align, or if you keep feeling like something's off, it's time to pay attention. This isn't about turning into a detective, but it is about trusting your intuition. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Cultivate your own honesty. Be the solid brick in a wall of truth. Not only will this help you feel grounded, but it may also inspire others around you to be more truthful. After all, honesty encourages honesty. Remember, identifying a compulsive liar isn't about passing judgment, it's about protecting yourself. As Seneca would advise, it is better to have a little with integrity than much gained through deception. It's like carrying an umbrella on a rainy day. You can't stop the rain, but at least you won't get drenched. Let's go now to the 6th sign. Imagine being with someone who explodes with overreactions whenever they are criticized or upset. This behavior is like a flashing red warning light, the sixth sign that should never be underestimated when identifying a problematic person in your life. Think of a pressure cooker about to burst. These individuals are like that, exploding at even the slightest hint of criticism. Their emotional outbursts resemble an earthquake, shaking everyone and everything around them. Does this sound familiar? But why do some people react so disproportionately? The answer lies deep within. These intense reactions are often a reflection of deep-rooted insecurities and fragile self-esteem. It's as if any form of criticism is a direct attack on their very identity. The ability to accept criticism with grace is a sign of emotional maturity and self-awareness. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, emphasized, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." This can be applied here, where emotional outbursts stem from an internal sense of lack, of control, confidence, or self-worth. When someone cannot handle criticism, they are often trapped in a cycle of denial and defensiveness, unable to see beyond their fragile self-image. A study conducted by the University of Michigan found that individuals who overreact to criticism tend to have lower levels of emotional well-being and more conflicted interpersonal relationships. This finding underscores the importance of recognizing and addressing this behavior before it causes further damage. Healthy relationships are built on open communication and the ability to accept constructive criticism. Epictetus reminds us, if anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." This Stoic wisdom encourages us to remain calm in the face of criticism, knowing that no one is without flaws. If you find yourself dealing with someone who overreacts to criticism, it's crucial to set clear boundaries and protect your own emotional well-being. Engage with them calmly and constructively, but don't allow their emotional turbulence to drag you into chaos. Remember, Marcus Aurelius taught us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. By maintaining your calm and composure, you ensure that their volatility does not disrupt your inner peace. Signal number 7. Have you ever met someone who seems to think the world revolves around them? Welcome to the fascinating and sometimes frustrating world of protagonist syndrome. Closely related to narcissism, this phenomenon is more common than you might think. Imagine for a moment that life is one big play, and the person with protagonist syndrome always sees themselves as the star of the show, relegating everyone else to mere supporting roles or extras in their grand production. Sounds fun, right? Well, not if you're one of the extras. From a psychological perspective, narcissism goes far beyond simply loving oneself. Dr. Craig Malkin, a Harvard psychologist, describes it as an addiction to feeling special. It's as if people with protagonist syndrome have an insatiable hunger for admiration and attention. History is full of examples of individuals who displayed this mindset. Take Napoleon Bonaparte, for instance. The man literally crowned himself emperor. Or consider Louis XV of France, who allegedly declared, "L'État, c'est moi, I am the state." Clearly, these individuals didn't suffer from low self-esteem. But how do you deal with such people in your everyday life? Here are some strategies. Set clear boundaries. People with protagonist syndrome will often try to invade your personal space, both physically and emotionally. Don't hesitate to say no and protect your space. Don't feed their ego. Avoid excessive flattery. A genuine compliment here and there is fine, but you don't want to spend all your time bolstering their inflated sense of self. Find common ground. Even narcissists can form meaningful connections if you find shared interests, so look for something you both value. Remember, it's not about trying to change these people. Spoiler alert, you probably can't. Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." Instead of focusing on altering their behavior, focus on how you navigate their troubled waters without sinking yourself. Here's the interesting part. We all have a little bit of a protagonist inside of us. Yes, even you. The next time you catch yourself thinking you're the center of the universe, take a pause. Epictetus reminds us, "He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at." Recognize that while you may be a star, you're still in a galaxy full of stars, each with their own role to play. So, the next time you find yourself on the stage of life with someone who seems to crave all the spotlight, take a deep breath, smile, and remember, they may think it's their show, but you get to decide your role in it. And who knows? Sometimes being in the background has its perks. At least you don't have to memorize all the lines. Number 8. The art of taking advantage. The 8th signal. Let's go now to signal number 8. Have you ever had the feeling that someone only approaches you when they need something? It's time to explore the art of taking advantage of others. Not to practice it, but to detect it and defend yourself against it. Imagine life as a grand game of chess. Opportunists are those players always looking to sacrifice their pawns, that is, you, to advance in their game. But don't worry. Today, we'll turn you into a bishop, or better yet, a queen, able to see through their moves. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, wisely observed, "He who takes advantage of another's misfortune is not far from desiring it." Opportunists have a kind of radar for detecting vulnerabilities, and they don't hesitate to exploit them. Sound familiar? That person who only calls when they need a favor? However, not everything in the world of opportunism is black and white. Sometimes we can all slip into opportunistic behavior without even realizing it. The key difference lies in intent and frequency. It's one thing to ask for help now and then, but another entirely to hide a self-serving agenda in every interaction. So, how do you protect yourself from these emotional vampires without becoming a hermit? Here are a few strategies. Value your time and energy. You don't have to be everyone's lifeline. Practice reciprocity. If someone only takes and never gives, it may be time to rethink the relationship. Healthy relationships are built on mutual give and take. The famous psychologist Carl Rogers once said, "The only way to understand a person is to put yourself in their shoes." Ironically, this is a skill that opportunists rarely practice. So the next time someone tries to use you as a stepping stone, remember, you're not just a stepping stone. You can propel them, but you also have the power to bounce them back down. The control is in your hands. The power is in your hands. That said, we'll reveal the 9th sign. Have you ever felt that your personal boundaries are about as respected as a red light to an impatient driver? Well, friends, welcome to the next sign of our bad person detector, the constant lack of respect for boundaries. Imagine your personal space as your favorite garden. Now, what if someone decided to use it as their personal playground without your permission? Frustrating, isn't it? That's exactly what it feels like when someone constantly ignores your boundaries. Carl Rogers, the renowned psychologist, once said, "The only road worth traveling is the one that leads to being yourself." But how can we truly be ourselves if someone is always invading our space? Malicious individuals often see boundaries not as lines to respect, but as obstacles to overcome. They may invade your privacy, ignore your requests for space, or persist in behaviors you've clearly stated are unacceptable. It's as if they've earned a PhD in ignoring social cues. But don't despair. There are ways to handle these boundary invaders. Here are some practical tips. 1. Be clear and direct. Don't leave room for interpretation. Let your boundaries be known explicitly. 2. Be consistent. If you give in even once, it's like inviting a vampire into your home. Once they're in, it's hard to get them out. 3. Practice self-care. You can't control their actions, but you can control how you respond to them. Henry Cloud, a well-known psychologist, points out that boundaries define who we are and who we are not. So the next time someone tries to trample on your personal garden, remind them, gently but firmly, that your flowers are not for stepping on. And speaking of stepping on toes, have you ever noticed how some people seem to have a PhD in criticizing others? Well, hold on, because that's our next warning sign. This toxic habit can be more damaging than you imagine. Imagine for a moment that you're surrounded by people who only focus on your flaws and constantly criticize you. How would that make you feel? Probably not very well. Psychologist John Gottman found that in healthy relationships, the ratio of positive to negative interactions should be at least 5-1. When criticism far exceeds this threshold, emotional well-being is at risk. I've known a few professional critics throughout my life, people who never saw the good and always honed in on the bad. Walking away from them was one of the best decisions I ever made. But beware, there is a crucial difference between constructive criticism and toxic criticism. Constructive feedback aims to help, while constant negative criticism is designed to hurt or control. The Stoic philosopher Seneca reminds us, choose someone whose way of living, as well as his words and even his face, pleases you. In other words, surround yourself with people who not only make you happy, but also push you to grow. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology revealed that exposure to constant negativity doesn't just impact your mental health, it can even affect your physical well-being. So it's not just your mood that's at stake. So, what do we do when we find ourselves in a cycle of negativity? How do we handle these tireless critics? Here are a few tips. 1. Set boundaries with a simple response. I appreciate your opinion, but I didn't ask for it, can work wonders in shutting down unsolicited negativity. 2. Practice empathy. Often, those who criticize the most are the ones suffering inside. Understanding their struggles can help you keep your own peace of mind. 3. Surround yourself with positivity. Seek out people who inspire you and uplift you. That said, constant criticism isn't something you have to tolerate. You have the power to step away and surround yourself with those who see and support the best in you. As Marcus Aurelius would advise, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. So choose wisely who and what you allow to shape your mind. Let's move on to sign number 11. Have you ever come across someone who seems to have an excuse for everything? Imagine you're playing the game of life, but every time they land on a bad square, instead of taking responsibility, they blame the dice, the board, or even the dog passing by. This is exactly how people who avoid responsibility act. Lack of responsibility is like an escape artist. They can slip out of uncomfortable situations faster than a magician disappearing in a puff of smoke. These individuals always have an excuse ready, as if their brain has an automatic justification generator. But why is this attitude so dangerous? Imagine building a house with someone who never admits to driving a crooked nail. In the end, you'll have a shaky house and a load of frustration. Avoiding accountability affects not only the person doing it, but also everyone around them. It's like a virus that spreads through relationships, creating distrust and resentment. Sound familiar? So, how do you identify someone who avoids responsibility? Here are a few clues. 1. They always have an excuse ready. 2. They blame others for their mistakes. 3. They constantly victimize themselves. 4. They change the subject when held accountable. If you know someone who does these things frequently, you may be dealing with a professional avoider of responsibility. But all is not lost. If you recognize some of these behaviors in yourself, congratulations. You've already taken the first step toward change. Remember, we all make mistakes. The real difference is in how we handle them. Responsibility is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, reminds us, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So the next time you're tempted to blame traffic for being late, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what can I do differently next time? Embracing responsibility not only strengthens our character, but it also improves our relationships, making them more trusting and resilient. As Marcus Aurelius taught, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Take accountability, and you'll build a foundation for a stronger, more authentic life. The 12th and final signal, the pursuit of revenge or punishment. Have you ever encountered someone who cannot let go of even the smallest offense? Today, we delve into the last signal of our bad person detector, the constant pursuit of revenge or punishment. Imagine someone who holds a grudge as if it were their most prized possession. These individuals struggle deeply with handling criticism or rejection. Rather than accepting feedback or respecting others' decisions, they embark on a mission of retaliation worthy of a dramatic action movie. But beware, revenge isn't always as blatant as a Hollywood villain. Sometimes it comes in subtler forms, like spreading rumors, sabotaging opportunities, or manipulating relationships. It's as if they have a radar for detecting offenses and an arsenal of negative responses ready to deploy. What's most curious? Several studies have shown that vengeful people often suffer from high levels of stress and poor emotional well-being. It's as if they're drinking poison, hoping it will harm someone else. But the poison is really eating away at them from within. So how do we handle these individuals? The key is to stay calm and avoid feeding their need for conflict. Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Their behavior reflects more about them than it does about you. Your power lies in choosing not to engage in their cycle of vengeance. Now that you're aware of these signals, it's up to you to use this knowledge to protect yourself and foster healthier relationships. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, reminds us, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. When faced with those who seek revenge, allow yourself time to pause, reflect, and choose a more rational, peaceful response. By doing so, not only do you protect your peace, but you also prevent their toxic behavior from contaminating your own life. Remember, it's not about stooping to their level, but about rising above it. As we wrap up, remember that life is full of interactions and relationships, both positive and negative. The key isn't to avoid people who display these 12 toxic behaviors entirely. After all, we all have flaws. But by recognizing these warning signs, you can better protect your well-being and cultivate healthier, more fulfilling relationships. The Stoics teach us that we cannot control others, only ourselves. Epictetus wisely said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it, that matters." With this knowledge, you now have the tools to navigate life with calm, wisdom, and resilience. Let these signals serve as guides to strengthen your boundaries and make mindful choices about the people you allow into your life. Before we go, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Stoic Rise Up, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more Stoic wisdom. And if you found this video helpful, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep growing and learning together. Because, as the Stoics believe, we become wiser with each lesson we embrace. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay grounded in wisdom and calm.